Have you ever just felt like you're banging your head against a wall? Like you're fighting a system that honestly just doesn't seem to care? It's like the world is designed to be easy, but somehow that just makes everything harder? Well, today we're going to talk about that. We're going to dive into what I call the apathy trap, and more importantly, the mental tools you need to fight back. So let's start with a big question, a pretty provocative one. Are humans becoming obsolete at their own jobs? It's something that feels more and more real every single day. And for me, this whole rabbit hole started with something really small, a $1 package. But what it revealed was a much, much bigger problem. And our story kicks off with a place we've all been, a classic source of modern frustration, customer service. In this case, it was the Swiss Post. Okay, so just picture this. I'm on a pay phone line, right? For 45 straight minutes, all I hear is that same message, on a loop. Our staff is busy. And then after all that time, the line just goes dead. All of this just to find a package worth a single dollar. This isn't just inefficient. It's like the system is actively trying to make you give up. Now, here's where it got really interesting. When I finally got to talk to a human employee, he gave me complete nonsense answers. He had no idea where the package was. But then, just to see what would happen, I asked ChatGPT the exact same question. And boom. Instantly, it understood what I wanted and gave me the right information. Think about that. The AI was genuinely more helpful than the person whose literal job it was to help me.
But here's the thing. It wasn't just about incompetence. I could see it in his eyes. He just didn't care at all. His only motivation, his only goal was to get through the day so he could go home and just switch on the TV. It was this profound, deep lack of interest in his own job.
And you know what? This problem goes way beyond the workplace. It's about a personal choice, a choice that a lot of us are making every single day, the choice to pick easy gratification over doing something that's actually meaningful. So take my neighbor, for example. Her cat was causing some issues on my balcony. So I went to her and said, hey, let's go find a solution together. I'll help you buy it. I'll help you install it. Her response? Oh, I'm just too busy. But then, when I went to install the device myself, a device I also paid for, by the way, I could see her through the window, spending her whole busy weekend just watching TV all day. She literally preferred to sit there and passively watch a screen than solve a simple problem. This pull towards the easiest possible reward, it's perfectly shown in this famous, kind of scary experiment. Scientists gave a rat, we'll call him Benny, a button. And whenever Benny pressed that button, a little jolt of pleasure chemicals would get released directly into his brain.
And the results, they were chilling. Once Benny figured out how the button worked, he did absolutely nothing else. He completely ignored his food, he ignored potential mates, he just kept pressing that button over and over and over until he died. He chose an instant, effortless hit of pleasure over his own survival.
And this, of course, brings us to the big question for all of us. When you think about the endless scroll on social media, the shorts, the reels, all of it designed by geniuses to be addictive, do we have Benny's button right there in our pockets? Okay, so if the world is constantly pushing us towards this state of apathy and easy gratification, what's the antidote, right? How do we actually fight back? For me, the answer is in developing a different kind of mindset, a mindset I learned from playing poker. The antidote is something I call meaningful difficulty. It's about intentionally, deliberately choosing activities that are hard, things that challenge you, that even frustrate you. But at the end of the day, they give you this deep, real sense of accomplishment. So why poker? Well, because it's the total opposite of that dead-end post office job. Think of it like a gym for your mind. It trains you in thinking about probabilities. It forces you to control your emotions under pressure. And it teaches you how to make the best possible decision when you don't have all the information. Let's be honest, you don't feel a real sense of achievement if something is just handed to you. The difficulty is what gives the success its meaning. It builds that mental muscle. And practicing this mindset helps you build an absolutely crucial life skill, the ability to handle a world that is, let's face it, fundamentally and often frustratingly unfair. So check out this hand, for example. I had a pair of sixes and my opponent had a pair of jacks. Now, mathematically, I only had about a 20% chance to win that hand. The odds were seriously stacked against me. And yet, a 6 came on the flop, and I won. That's randomness for you. It doesn't care about what should happen. We have this idea that randomness should look all nice and balanced, but it almost never does. If you actually flip a coin 100 times, you're going to see weird streaks, a bunch of tails in a row, then a long run of heads. These streaks can feel really unfair, like the universe is out to get you, but they're just a totally natural part of how life and chance work. The key is to not let them break you.
And that feeling of this is so unfair, it is wired deep inside us. There's this incredible experiment where two monkeys are in cages right next to each other. One monkey gets a delicious sweet grape as a reward for a task. The other one, he gets a boring old piece of cucumber. And the monkey with the cucumber gets absolutely furious. He understands he's getting a raw deal, and he throws the cucumber back at the scientist. This sense of fairness isn't just some human idea, it's primal.
So, knowing all this, knowing that the world pushes us toward apathy, that our brains are wired for easy gratification, and that life itself is inherently unfair, what are we supposed to do? Well, it all comes down to a choice. At the end of the day, we're all faced with two paths. On one side, you've got the easy road, the apathy, the instant gratification, the endless TV. It feels good right now, but it leads to weakness, to feeling empty. And on the other side, you've got the meaningful struggle, engagement, delayed rewards, actually learning something. It's harder in the moment, for sure, but it's what builds mental fortitude and leads to real fulfillment. And here is the most important distinction of all. We are not Benny the Rat, just mindlessly pressing a button until we expire. And we are not the monkey, throwing our cucumbers back in a fit of rage. We have the intelligence to choose our game. The poker mindset teaches us to respond, not with raw emotion, but with strategy and with character. It teaches us to make the best possible move we can, even when we're dealt a bad hand. So ultimately, every single day presents us with this choice. The path of least resistance, the phone, the TV, the apathy, it's always there, it's always calling to you. The only question is, what will your response be?
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today is Thursday, March 5th, 2026, and we have a spectacularly unusual stack of source material to get through today.
Yeah, it really is. It's not our usual fare.
No, not at all. We aren't looking at some polished, peer-reviewed academic paper today, and we aren't pulling from a meticulously edited, best-selling book either.
Right, which makes it kind of exciting.
Exactly. The source material sitting in front of us is a raw, completely unedited transcript of a conversation. It's a recorded session between two highly specialized minds.
And the contrast between these two is just fantastic.
It really is. On one side, we have this French-speaking philosopher and author. He's someone who spends his life writing these massive, extensive treatises on Stoicism. Titles like The Way of the Stoic Diamond and Samurai Stoic.
Very high-level theoretical stuff.
Right. And on the other side of this conversation is his poker teacher, a coach named Norman.
And Norman's entire professional existence revolves around managing risk, probability, variance, and just the brutal realities of high-stakes decision-making.
It's the perfect clash of worlds.
That contrast is exactly what makes this transcript so compelling.
Yeah.
You've got a philosopher actively trying to drag ancient theoretical wisdom out of the library and, well, apply it to modern systemic frustrations.
Putting it to the test.
Exactly. And then you have his coach, whose laboratory is essentially the felt of a poker table. What we find in this material is that the poker table serves as this remarkably accurate microcosm for massive human behaviors.
It strips away all the noise.
It does. It forces a confrontation with how we handle fundamental unfairness, cognitive bias, and as we'll get into, even our modern addiction to digital screens.
Which is why I need to clarify right now, the mission of this deep dive isn't to teach you the mechanics of a card game. If you want a tutorial on expected value or, pre-flop raising ranges, you already know where to find those.
Yeah, there are plenty of resources for that. That's not what this is.
Our mission today is to explore the precise intersection of high-stakes poker math, ancient Stoic philosophy, and the mundane, everyday, grinded-out frustrations of the modern world that you and I experience every single day.
The stuff that actually tests our patience.
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. Because the journey we are taking you on today covers everything from a notoriously infuriating post office experience and dopamine-addicted laboratory rats.
Which is a wild story.
It is to the deep, almost existential psychological weight of flipping a simple coin.
Because the grand philosophies of life, the ones debated by Marcus Aurelius or Seneca, they are rarely tested in gladiator arenas anymore.
Right, the arena has changed.
They are tested in the most banal environments imaginable. They are tested when you're trapped in a bureaucratic loop with customer service, or when the mathematical variance of a system seems entirely stacked against you.
That's where the rubber meets the road for modern Stoicism, which brings us to the very first point of the day, the post office paradox.
Oh, this is such a relatable starting point.
It really is. The transcript opens with the author detailing this highly relatable anecdote regarding a missing package. And the financial stakes of this package are laughably low.
We're talking about a single US dollar.
$1. But the logistical pursuit of this $1 item becomes this absolute descent into madness. He spends 45 minutes on a paid by-the-minute phone line for the Swiss Post.
So he's actively bleeding money, just waiting.
Literally paying to wait.
Ah.
He sits there listening to this automated voice loop stating that the staff is busy and will answer as soon as possible. And after nearly an hour of this purgatory, the call simply disconnects.
Just drops. Which, I mean, we've all been there. It's infuriating. But the author refuses to let the friction end there.
He escalates it.
He travels to the physical post office to confront the system in person. And this is where the narrative shifts from just a standard customer service complaint into a much deeper critique of automated apathy.
Yeah, so he arrives at the counter and engages with a human employee. And the employee immediately attempts to brush him off. They claim they don't have the package and suggest it must be with a private courier, like DHL or UPS.
So standard deflection.
Right. But the author came prepared. Before walking into the building, he actually consulted ChatGPT.
This is where it gets so good.
He fed the AI his specific tracking numbers, the exact sequence of the 20 previous post office scans, and all the logistical routing details.
And the AI correctly deduces that based on those rigid parameters, the tracking numbers, the sequence, it's mathematically and logistically impossible for the package to be with a private courier.
The AI concludes it must be sitting physically inside that specific Swiss post office. So the author presents this flawless deduction-based logic to the human employee.
And the human employee's response is just a masterclass in bureaucratic indifference.
It's maddening.
Presented with airtight logic, the employee simply says, "I've read it. We don't have the package."
And then they just type something indiscernible onto their keyboard. A note the author astutely points out will probably never be read by another living soul. And then they dismiss him.
And the kicker. 5 hours later, the author receives the correct internal Swiss tracking number from the original sender in China, proving the AI's deduction was entirely accurate.
The post office was holding the package the entire time.
They had it. What's fascinating here is how the author uses this interaction to formulate a really profound critique of the modern labor force.
Right, because he makes a pretty aggressive assertion based on this. He argues that logistical, number-heavy, tracking-based roles should be entirely stripped from human workers and handed over to AI.
And his argument isn't just that AI is faster or more accurate. It's that humans occupying these specific bureaucratic roles suffer from a systemic lack of care.
He diagnoses this as the meaningless job mentality.
Exactly. He looks at the postal worker and realizes this individual has zero investment in the resolution of the problem.
Their only goal is for the interaction to end.
That's it. The sole objective is the cessation of the interaction so they can eventually clock out, go home, and consume television.
It's a bleak assessment, but it really highlights a pervasive societal architecture. He's observing a framework where people are essentially running out the clock on their own consciousness.
They occupy roles completely devoid of genuine challenge or autonomy or the pursuit of excellence. The ultimate reward of their labor is just the end of the labor itself.
When the primary objective of your waking life is to survive the shift so you can anesthetize yourself in front of a screen, well, the complex tracking issue of a stranger's $1 package becomes an intolerable intrusion.
It's the absolute automation of apathy.
And he reinforces this with another story. This one is from his immediate surroundings, focusing on his neighbor's cat.
Oh, the balcony story.
Yes. So the cat has established this habit of using the author's balcony as a litter box. To resolve this, the author approaches his neighbor with a highly proactive, collaborative proposition.
He's trying to be a good neighbor.
Right. He suggests they travel to the hardware store together, pick out a physical barrier for the adjoining balconies, and install it. Just permanently solve the issue.
It's a textbook attempt at constructive, real-world problem-solving between members of a shared community.
And the neighbor's response is an immediate refusal. She claims she is too busy.
So the author, trying to eliminate friction, offers to execute the plan on the weekend when she's free from professional obligations.
And she reiterates her refusal, again claiming she's too busy to participate.
So the author eventually just assumes the entirety of the burden.
He travels to the store on a Saturday, buys the barrier with his own money, and installs it himself, mainly to preempt any complaints she might have about the aesthetics.
But while he's performing this labor, he observes how she's actually spending her profoundly busy time.
She is sitting inside her apartment for the duration of the entire day, passively watching television.
Her definition of being occupied is the deliberate avoidance of action.
Yes, she's fiercely guarding her right to do absolutely nothing while someone else absorbs the cognitive and physical load of solving a mutual problem.
And the author extrapolates this behavior. He notes that for the vast majority of people he encounters, the absolute pinnacle of human desire is simply to consume passive entertainment.
It supersedes community engagement. It supersedes maintaining their personal environment.
And in some cases, he notes it even supersedes engaging with their own families.
If we pause for a second and connect this back to you, the listener, just consider the systems and individuals you interact with daily. How often are you engaging with people operating on this exact baseline of apathy?
The author is pointing to a massive silent shift in the human condition. We are increasingly optimizing our lives for passive consumption over active engagement.
We're choosing the anesthetic of the digital screen over the inherent friction of navigating reality.
And this preference for the frictionless void sets the foundation perfectly for the next major theme in their dialogue, which takes this concept of passive consumption straight into the realm of neurobiology.
Which brings us to section 2 and the introduction of Benny.
Ah, Benny the rat.
Benny the rat. The author references a seminal scientific experiment involving a laboratory rat. He refers to him as either Benny or Bernie in the transcript, but we'll stick with Benny.
Poor Benny.
The researchers in this experiment bypassed external behavioral rewards entirely. They wired a button directly into the pleasure centers of Benny's brain.
They isolated the neurological pathway for reward and gave Benny a mechanism to manually trigger a flood of dopamine.
It was the purest form of instant, guaranteed, frictionless gratification ever engineered.
And the outcome for Benny is utterly macabre.
Once he comprehended what the button did, he engaged in obsessive, relentless stimulation. He abandoned all biological imperatives. He stopped eating. He stopped drinking water.
When the researchers introduced a female rat into the enclosure to trigger a mating response, Benny just ignored her entirely.
His universe shrank to the circumference of that button. He effectively starved himself to death while continuously self-administering artificial pleasure.
It's dark, but the author draws a severe, uncompromising parallel between Benny's button and the architecture of our modern digital landscape.
The devices in our pocket.
Exactly. Consider the algorithmic design of infinitely scrolling feeds, the short-form videos, the specific mechanics of modern social media platforms.
Shorts, reels, all of it.
The author posits that these platforms are our iteration of Benny's button. They're optimized by legions of engineers to be as frictionless and neurologically addictive as possible.
A microscopic movement of the thumb yields a precise, calculated hit of dopamine. The mechanism is identical, and the behavioral outcome is strikingly similar.
The author observes humans neglecting their physical health, their interpersonal relationships, their professional ambitions, all in favor of the continuous digital feed.
And he notes that if you sever an individual's connection to their device, the immediate reaction is profound discomfort. They experience this acute sense of boredom, which quickly mutates into anxiety.
Because they're forced to confront the unedited reality of their lives, the complex relationships, the financial pressures, the general friction of existence.
And to escape that psychological pain, they retreat immediately back to the device, back to the button.
This is where the philosophical pivot of the transcript occurs. Because think about what the author is doing. He is enduring the agonizing process of learning high-stakes poker from Norman.
Right. To study poker seriously is to subject yourself to intense mental fatigue, constant encounters with failure.
And the brutal realization of your own cognitive limitations. It is the absolute antithesis of a frictionless experience.
Yet the author explicitly declares to his coach that he vastly prefers the suffering inherent in learning poker over the anesthetized existence of Benny the rat.
He states he would lose his mind if he were forced into a static, unchanging role like the postal worker.
He recognizes that without the intense difficulty of the task, there's no corresponding sense of achievement. He's making a conscious, deliberate choice to pursue the path of maximum mental resistance.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the author is identifying friction as the core prerequisite for meaning.
Yes.
An existence stripped of challenge, insulated from the possibility of catastrophic failure like the neighbor watching television or Benny pressing the lever, inevitably decays into nihilism.
The sheer difficulty of mastering poker,
the emotional regulation required to survive variance, the intellectual heavy lifting required to understand the math that is the engine of genuine pride.
You cannot forge intellectual resilience without subjecting the mind to immense stress. The author realizes that a frictionless life is a lethal trap.
The rat chose the easy path, and it resulted in biological termination. The neighbor chose the easy path, and it resulted in profound alienation and apathy.
The author's choice to grind through complex probability matrices is essentially a rebellion against the automation of his own consciousness.
And that leads directly into their deep dive on the concept of variance in poker. Because if you are going to seek out friction, mastering your psychological response to variance is the ultimate crucible for the Stoic mind.
Without a doubt.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The transcript shifts from abstract philosophy to the hard, unyielding mathematics of luck.
They begin dissecting variance through the lens of a simple coin flip simulator.
Right, because we all conceptually accept that a coin flip carries a 50% probability for heads and a 50% probability for tails. But Norman introduces the author to a digital simulator that executes 100 consecutive flips.
And the moment the simulator runs, the human brain's expectation of an orderly distribution is shattered.
Completely. The simulator does not produce a neat alternating sequence of heads, tails, heads, tails. It produces massive, jagged clusters.
It outputs streaks of 5 consecutive tails, followed by 6 consecutive heads.
And the author's immediate reaction to viewing this raw data is to declare that it looks fake or staged.
Which is such a natural human response. Our cognitive architecture demands pattern recognition. When we witness 5 consecutive tails, the internal narrative screams that a head's outcome is statistically due.
We project this sense of cosmic justice onto the math. We assume an invisible force will intervene to correct the short-term imbalance.
But Norman ruthlessly dismantles this illusion with a single observation. He says, the coin does not know it is supposed to switch sides.
That is a terrifyingly elegant truth. The coin does not know.
It possesses no memory of the previous flips. It has no inherent sense of fairness. It operates under zero obligation to maintain a 50-50 equilibrium within a small sample size.
The law of large numbers dictates that the distribution will eventually smooth out, but that requires an incredibly vast sample. We're talking 5,000 or 50,000 iterations.
But within the microsample of 10 or 20 flips, which correlates to the days, weeks, or even months of our actual lives, the statistical reality can manifest as wildly, almost maliciously, unfair.
And they immediately map this mathematical reality onto the poker table, and by extension, financial markets and career trajectories.
Because in a high-stakes environment, you can execute the mathematically optimal decision, a decision carrying an 80% probability of success, and you can still suffer a loss.
Furthermore, due to the clustering nature of variance we just talked about, you can execute that flawless decision 5 consecutive times and suffer 5 consecutive losses, simply because you've entered a statistical streak of tails.
The psychological degradation caused by that experience is profound. You analyze the data, you study the optimal theory, you execute without error, and the system still extracts your capital.
The author provides a highly specific scenario to illustrate this torture. It's the classic pre-flop confrontation of pocket sixes versus pocket jacks.
For an audience familiar with the math, the equity distribution is clear here. The pocket jacks hold roughly an 80% advantage over the pocket sixes.
But the author confesses to Norman that when he holds the pocket sixes and he manages to crack the jacks by hitting a lucky card on the board, he experiences absolutely zero emotional satisfaction.
Because he knows his decision was mathematically inferior. His victory is merely a statistical anomaly.
He tells Norman the win provides no joy because his analytical mind knows the luck will inevitably vanish.
Norman, however, provides a cognitive reframe here that completely alters the philosophical landscape of the game.
This blew my mind a little bit.
Right. He points out a structural reality of poker payouts. When you hold the jacks and possess that 80% equity advantage, a victory does not result in the dealer awarding you 80% of the pot.
The dealer awards you 100% of the pot. There is no proportional distribution based on mathematical entitlement.
Precisely. So, when you win with the 80% advantage, you are effectively capturing 20% more capital than your raw equity dictated you deserved.
So Norman's framework suggests that every single time the jacks hold up and win, You are quietly banking a 20% bonus from the universe.
You are hoarding unearned equity. Therefore, over a long timeline, your ledger is artificially inflated by these constant 20% overpayments.
So when the variance simulator eventually clusters against you, when your jacks are inevitably cracked by a mathematically inferior hand like sixes, it is not an act of cosmic cruelty.
It's simply the universe balancing the ledger. It is the system clawing back the accumulated bonuses you were never mathematically entitled to in the first place.
Internalizing that framework neutralizes the victim mentality entirely. You cease viewing a bad beat as a personal attack and recognize it as a standard accounting adjustment within a closed mathematical system.
However, internalizing that logic is incredibly difficult due to the psychological phenomenon they discuss next: loss aversion.
Yes, the author rightly identifies loss aversion as the primary barrier to Stoic play.
The human psyche does not weigh gains and losses equally. Empirical psychology demonstrates that the psychological trauma of losing a specific amount of capital is roughly twice as intense as the psychological pleasure of gaining that exact same amount.
So if a player wins a buy-in and subsequently loses a buy-in, their net financial change is exactly zero, but their emotional state is deeply negative.
Because the pain of the loss dramatically outpaced the joy of the win.
For you listening, consider how loss aversion dictates your own strategic maneuvering in life. Does the disproportionate fear of loss prevent you from liquidating a failing asset? Does the dread of rejection outweigh the potential upside of an ambitious career move?
This biological bias makes enduring the brutal variance of the coin flips almost unbearable because our internal accounting software is fundamentally flawed.
And that flawed internal accounting is deeply tied to our innate, almost desperate demand for the universe to be fair, which transitions the transcript into one of its most complex philosophical territories, the construct of fairness itself.
To dissect the concept of fairness, the author brings up a landmark behavioral study involving capuchin monkeys.
The researchers placed two monkeys in adjacent enclosures, separated by transparent barriers allowing full visual access to one another.
And the experiment involved training the monkeys to perform a basic token exchange task, handing a rock to the researcher in exchange for a reward.
It's a controlled environment designed to test the perception of unequal compensation for equal labor. So the baseline is established with the first monkey. The monkey performs the token exchange and is rewarded with a high-value item, a sweet grape.
The monkey is highly satisfied.
Then the researcher approaches the second monkey, asks for the exact same token exchange, but rewards the second monkey with a low-value item, a slice of bland cucumber.
And the reaction of the second monkey is the crux of the study. The monkey perceives the disparity instantly. He examines the cucumber, looks at his neighbor consuming the grape, and exhibits aggressive, retaliatory behavior.
He hurls the cucumber back at the researcher, rattles the enclosure, and displays visible outrage.
The monkey possesses an acute, actionable understanding of systemic disparity. He fundamentally comprehends that the economy of the cage is rigged.
This raises an important question, and it prompts a crucial debate between the author and his coach. Are we, as biological organisms, fundamentally hardwired to demand fairness?
Is justice a biological imperative embedded in our DNA, or is it merely a sophisticated social construct we engineered to prevent societal collapse?
The author firmly argues for biological hardwiring, citing the Capuchin response. He further illustrates this with the hierarchical structure of wolf packs.
When a pack secures a kill, the alpha consumes the highest value organs first. The subordinate wolves, regardless of their caloric expenditure during the hunt, must wait.
Yet they accept this unequal distribution. They possess an innate understanding of their specific placement within that localized system of justice. The unfairness is biologically recognized and integrated as the natural order.
But then the conversation pivots to examine the extreme cultural relativity of what constitutes fairness among humans. They analyze historical and geopolitical frameworks to demonstrate how the definition of justice is entirely mutable.
They bring up the societal architecture of North Korea. Within that regime, the Western concept of individual romantic love is systematically dismantled.
The populace is conditioned from birth to direct all primary devotion and love toward the state apparatus and the supreme leader.
To a mind conditioned by Western liberalism, that psychological monopoly is a profound, almost unimaginable injustice.
But within the isolated parameters of that specific society, it functions as the accepted, taught reality of how the world is ordered.
They push the historical lens even further back, examining the pre-Columbian Inca Empire.
The Incas institutionalized human sacrifice, utilizing it as a tool for religious appeasement and social control.
To the modern observer, this is the ultimate violation of human rights. Yet, within the theological and social framework of the Incas, it was perceived as a necessary, deeply just mechanism for ensuring the continuation of the cosmos.
It forces a severe cognitive dissonance. It suggests that the universal justice we hold so sacred might simply be the localized rule set of the specific temporal and geographic game we happen to be occupying.
So if fairness is a moving target, or perhaps merely a localized illusion, how does the Stoic operate when the system delivers a cucumber instead of a grape?
This is where Norman, the poker coach, provides the ultimate Stoic synthesis. He acknowledges that the feeling of outrage, the biological spike of anger the monkey experiences, is likely inevitable.
But the reaction to that biological spike is entirely subject to executive control.
He poses a brilliant hypothetical. Assume you are the monkey who is permanently assigned to the cucumber condition. Assume you were born into a structural disadvantage, or you face chronic bad luck.
Assume the variance simulator is prominently clustered against you.
Yes. If you yield to the biological outrage, if you hurl the cucumber out of the cage and engage in a hunger strike, who absorbs the damage?
The researchers are indifferent.
The universe is indifferent. The only entity suffering from the protest is the monkey. The Stoic methodology does not require you to hallucinate that the cucumber is a grape. It demands that you accept the unalterable parameters of the game you are trapped in.
You accept that variance is heavily skewed. You consume the cucumber to maintain your physical and mental stamina, and you navigate the rigged system without allowing the external unfairness to corrupt your internal dignity.
You do not allow the rigged game to break your character.
Which transitions us perfectly into Section 5. This deals extensively with the Stoic categorization of externals. We are looking at the management of health, capital, and the inevitable process of aging variables that remain outside our absolute sovereignty.
The dialogue regarding capital is particularly sharp here. Norman casually remarks that if the author were to secure millions of dollars in tournament winnings, it would constitute a good year.
It's the standard, unquestioned assumption of modern capitalism. Maximum capital accumulation equates to maximum life satisfaction.
But the author violently rejects this premise. He argues that acquiring $5 or $10 million is functionally irrelevant if the surrounding infrastructure of your life is collapsing.
He interrogates the value of that capital if your biological health is rapidly deteriorating, or if your domestic life is a theater of misery, or if your interpersonal relationships are severed.
Furthermore, he points out the fragility of the capital itself. A sudden geopolitical shift or a revision in tax code could instantly evaporate half of that accumulated wealth.
He is exposing the profound risk of anchoring your psychological stability to a variable you do not control.
He's pointing out that wealth is a preferred indifferent in Stoic terms. It's nice to have, but fundamentally disconnected from true virtue or happiness. And he extends this ruthless logic directly to the biological body, using stark observations from his own social circle.
He introduces the example of an acquaintance named Marion. He notes that Marion's identity and social capital were previously entirely dependent on her extraordinary youth and physical beauty.
But biological decay is a mathematical certainty.
The author observes that all of that physical currency has vanished, leaving behind only archival photographs as proof it ever existed.
He also cites Marion's husband, Josh, whose daily existence is now defined by the consumption of painkillers, and another neighbor who is trapped in a cycle of complaining about chronic back pain.
The author is diagnosing a mass delusion. He observes individuals suffering profound psychological agony because they tethered their identity to an asset, the physical body, that has a 100% depreciation rate.
But this requires nuance. If the body is destined to decay, does the Stoic simply abandon physical maintenance? Does the philosophy demand total neglect?
Absolutely not. And the author relies on a classical analogy to clarify this: the peasant and the farm.
In the Stoic framework, your physical body, your financial portfolio, and your public reputation are all classified as externals. They are on loan from fortune.
The optimal approach is to manage these assets with the exact same objective, unemotional rigor that a peasant applies to their livestock or their tractor.
The peasant performs the required maintenance. They change the oil in the tractor. The author mentions his own rigorous regimen, fasting for 14 hours a day to optimize his biological machinery.
But the critical distinction is emotional attachment.
Exactly. The peasant does not derive their core spiritual worth from the operational status of the tractor.
The peasant accepts the reality that the metal will eventually fatigue, the engine will eventually seize, and the machine will be sold for scrap. You operate as the chief executive of the assets fortune has temporarily assigned to you. You optimize your diet, you allocate your capital intelligently, but you fiercely refuse to confuse those external assets with your true self.
If your internal peace is contingent upon a pain-free lumbar spine or a specific net worth, you are essentially shorting your own happiness because those markets will eventually crash.
Okay, let's take these massive theoretical frameworks and subject them to a stress test on the felt. Section 6 translates these philosophies directly into high-level poker hand analysis.
This is where the transcript reveals how rapidly intellectual stoicism collapses under the pressure of real-time financial risk.
The first hand they deconstruct perfectly exposes the psychological leak of avoiding a slow bleed. The scenario is a tournament setting. The author is sitting on a stack of 26 big blinds. He is dealt ace-jack suited.
It's a highly playable holding, but it is not a premium monster.
The author confesses his immediate overwhelming impulse is to execute a massive overbet, either a highly non-standard 11x raise or an outright open shove all in.
From a theoretical standpoint, with 26 big blinds, that sizing is a massive punt. Norman forces the author to forensically examine the psychology behind that impulse.
And the author is remarkably transparent. He admits he is terrified of the friction inherent in playing a post-flop pot. If he uses a standard raise size and faces resistance and is forced to fold, his stack will diminish to roughly 16 big blinds.
And operating a 16 big blind stack is the definition of psychological torture in a tournament. It's a state of constant vulnerability. You are stripped of your maneuverability.
You're forced to patiently wait for optimal mathematical spots while the blinds slowly erode your remaining capital. The author refers to it as a long, extended death.
He is attempting to use aggression as an anxiety relief mechanism. He is willing to intentionally execute a mathematically disastrous play right now, risking his entire tournament life simply to guarantee he won't have to experience the discomfort of playing the short stack later.
He wants a binary outcome, double up or go home, just so he can escape the cognitive load of uncertainty.
Norman immediately patches this leak. He diagnoses the behavior as a failure of Stoic endurance. Norman mandates that the author must build the psychological stamina to survive the slow bleed.
You cannot set the farm on fire simply because you're tired of patching the roof.
You will inevitably be required to risk your tournament life, but that risk must be dictated by the mathematical expected value of the hand, never by your desperate need to relieve internal anxiety.
The second hand they analyze deals with the catastrophic consequences of tunnel vision. The author is involved in a massive pot. He reaches the river and has successfully completed his draw. He holds a flush.
Specifically, his highest flush card is a king.
He is flooded with the relief of hitting his hand, and he calculates his odds of winning or splitting the pot at roughly 1.11 to 1.
But his calculation is fatally flawed because the relief of hitting the flush induced a state of cognitive blindness. He ceased analyzing the board texture. He completely failed to range his opponent.
He forgot the fundamental mechanics of hand rankings, that when both players hold a flush, the winner is determined by the highest card in the sequence.
He assumed a split or a win, completely ignoring the highly probable scenario that his opponent was holding the ace of that suit.
He was entirely focused on his own internal narrative, I made my flush, that he failed to read the fine print of the external reality. He was drawing dead, but he was betting as if he held the nuts.
It is the ultimate manifestation of confirmation bias under pressure. The brain highlights the data that supports our desired outcome and aggressively filters out the data that suggests destruction.
Finally, Norman introduces a high-level strategic concept that requires total mastery over the ego, the art of the microbluff.
In a highly specific board texture where both players have demonstrated capped ranges or extreme weakness, Norman suggests an incredibly unorthodox line.
He advises the author to risk a mere 1 or 2 big blinds to attack a pot of 7 big blinds. The sizing looks absurd to a recreational player.
The required capital investment is minimal, but the psychological investment is immense. To execute this micro-bluff, you must detach entirely from the fear of looking foolish.
If you bet 1 big blind into a pot of 7 and your opponent calls you with a marginal holding, your sizing looks incompetent.
But mathematically, if you recognize that your opponent is operating with the apathy of the post office worker, If they simply want the hand to be over and will fold out of sheer disinterest, the risk-to-reward ratio is astronomical.
You are risking a fraction of a seed to steal the harvest, but you must be willing to sacrifice the seed without a millimeter of emotional turbulence.
So what does this all mean for you listening? It is a stark warning that in complex systems, whether it's navigating a career path, managing a portfolio, or playing high-stakes poker, failing to rigorously analyze the external data, failing to look for the opponent's ace, will result in liquidation.
And more crucially, allowing the dread of a slow bleed to dictate your actions will force you into self-destructive gambles. You have to build the calluses required to endure the grind.
Which leads us into section 7, the final and perhaps most illuminating portion of the transcript.
Because throughout this analysis, we've focused on the author's psychological leaks. But in the final moments of the recording, the analytical lens suddenly pivots onto Norman, the Stoic teacher himself.
As they are concluding the session, the author detects a shift in Norman's vocal tone. The coach sounds clipped. He sounds irritable. He is clearly exhibiting signs of cognitive depletion.
The external variables are bleeding into his performance. He might be experiencing a caloric deficit, he might be operating on insufficient sleep, or he might simply be exhausted from the immense friction of the Socratic dialogue.
The theoretical framework is suddenly live. How does the master handle the degradation of his own emotional baseline? Does he default to the apathy of the neighbor? Does he hurl a metaphorical cucumber?
He executes a flawless maneuver of self-awareness. Norman doesn't attempt to obfuscate his state. He states plainly on the recording, "I guess I just don't have the best control over how I feel today. There's an external reason for it. I guess you could say I'm maybe a bit hungry or a bit tired."
But the crucial moment happens immediately after the admission. He applies the philosophy in real time, stating, "It's all really in my control. Even if I am hungry, then I should still be able to keep my composure."
He isolates the biological signal, the hunger, the fatigue, and strips it of its authority. He acknowledges the presence of the feeling, but firmly denies it the jurisdiction to dictate his behavior.
The author notes how incredibly rare this level of transparency is. He contrasts Norman's real-time accountability with the behavior of his social circle, specifically Marion.
The author observes that the standard human protocol is to relentlessly lie about our internal state. We pretend we are operating at baseline while we are internally fracturing, or we attempt to chemically suppress the bad mood, which inevitably turns us into toxic liabilities for everyone around us.
Taking absolute ownership of your compromised state is a profound display of power, and this relentless demand for accountability is directly reflected in Norman's pedagogical architecture.
The author notes that Norman utilizes the Socratic method for his coaching. He refuses to deliver passive lectures. A lecture allows the student to slip into the frictionless consumption mode of Benny the Rat.
Instead, Norman relentlessly interrogates the author. He forces the author to verbally calculate the exact pot odds, to explicitly state his assumptions, and to logically construct the solution from scratch.
The Socratic method is the deliberate injection of intense cognitive friction. It is agonizing for the student, and it requires a massive expenditure of energy from the teacher.
The author points out that the vast majority of his peers would outright refuse free coaching from Norman, simply because the mental caloric burn required to survive the Socratic interrogation is too painful.
They harbor a deep preference for comfortable ignorance over the brutal friction of genuine skill acquisition.
The ultimate synthesis of this entire raw transcript is the concept of recognizing the emotional baseline. It is the profound realization that on any given Tuesday, you might find yourself as the monkey holding the cucumber.
You will experience the biological outrage of a rigged variance simulator. You will be exhausted, you will be on hold with an apathetic bureaucracy, and your pocket kings will run directly into pocket aces.
But the superpower lies in creating a millimeter of space between the event and your reaction. It is the ability to observe yourself and say, I am currently experiencing the sensation of unfairness, rather than allowing the unfairness to become your identity.
You hold zero sovereignty over the sequence of the cards, the logistical failures of the postal system, or the apathy of the people around you. Your sole area of absolute jurisdiction is the architecture of your response.
And that concludes our analysis of this remarkable conversation.
Let's trace the massive arc we've covered today. We began in the purgatory of the Swiss post office, dissecting the modern tragedy of the meaningless job and the societal retreat into the passive anesthesia of screens.
We examined the grim biological warning of Benny the Rat, proving that a life without friction is a life without meaning.
We stared into the cold, memoryless void of the Variance simulator and learned to reframe our unearned luck as a 20% bonus rather than a baseline entitlement.
We navigated the capuchin monkey's demand for fairness, realizing that the ultimate Stoic flex is to consume the cucumber with your dignity intact.
We redefined wealth and physical health as mere farm equipment on loan from fortune. And finally, we saw how owning your emotional baseline prevents you from burning down your own tournament life in a desperate bid to escape anxiety.
It is a dense, unforgiving matrix of ideas, but it is immensely practical. Our call to action for you, the listener, is to run a diagnostic on your own reactions over the next 48 hours.
When you inevitably collide with a systemic failure, when the vendor misses a deadline, when the traffic gridlocks, when the market moves against your position, interrogate your internal narrative.
Are you operating under the delusion that you are owed an 80% reward every single time? Are you demanding a grape from a universe that only has cucumbers in stock? Observe the friction and choose your response.
That is the perfect diagnostic to run. And to leave you with a final provocative thought that extends beyond the immediate scope of today's deep dive. If we accept the premise that life is fundamentally a game of incomplete information, and we accept that absolute universal fairness is merely a psychological construct we invented to soothe our own existential dread, is the ultimate winning strategy simply the conscious decision of which specific game and which specific flavors of suffering are actually worthy of your limited time on this earth?
Choose your friction wisely, because the friction is the entirety of the experience.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this exploration provided you with the necessary tools to navigate the variance of your own life. Until next time, stay analytical, embrace the Socratic friction, and manage your farm well. Take care.
Welcome to the debate. Today we are tackling something, well, every single one of us has felt at some point, the absolute sting of unfairness.
Right, that deeply visceral reaction when things just do not go your way.
Exactly. We are looking at how human beings navigate the extreme variance of fortune, and we are asking a fundamental question. Is our response to adversity a biological absolute that we just have to suffer through, or a malleable psychological construct that we can rewire?
And we are drawing this discussion from source material that weaves together some pretty diverse threads: Stoic philosophy, the mathematics of poker, and behavioral psychology, all to really examine human resilience.
I'll be taking the stance that our perception of fairness is largely a learned mental construct, and true resilience is achieved by philosophically detaching from external outcomes and viewing them merely as administrative variables.
And I contend that the drive for fairness and the sting of unearned loss are deeply inherent biological realities, meaning true mental fortitude requires actively acknowledging and enduring this hardwired psychological pain, rather than just, dismissing it as an illusion.
Let's dive right in then. To build the foundation of my perspective, we really have to look at how societal and cultural conditioning creates the very illusion of what we call justice and fairness. If we step outside our own modern bubble, cultural relativism illustrates this beautifully. Take North Korean society, for example. There, the concept of love is framed entirely around devotion to the state and the party.
Right. Their emotional vocabulary is engineered from the top down.
Precisely. On a personal, individual level, the Western ideal of love simply does not exist in their constructed reality. A child raised in that system views devotion to the state not as a forced obligation, but as the purest form of love. It is entirely constructed. Or look further back at historical Incan societies. The practice of human sacrifice, even of infants, was viewed as a profound manifestation of justice and cosmic order. When they sacrificed a life, they truly believed they were balancing the scales of the universe.
It was their specific version of fairness.
Yes, exactly. What you or I think is just or fair is fundamentally a mental construct, dictated by our era and our environment. In modern contexts, we see this cognitive error constantly, perhaps most clearly at the poker table. Believing you deserve to win a hand simply because you hold a premium starting hand like pocket jacks is a purely ego-driven fallacy. The cards don't owe you anything.
But the player certainly feels they do.
They do, and that is the trap. When people lack a rigorously constructed philosophical value system, they fall into the trap of instant gratification to soothe those fragile egos when reality doesn't match their expectations. They become like Bernie the rat. For those picturing a standard lab experiment, this goes a bit deeper. Bernie was rigged to receive a dopamine hit directly to his brain at the push of a button. He minded nothing else. He pressed that pleasure button until he starved to death, completely ignoring food and mates. True Stoicism treats health, wealth, and bad luck merely as external factors to be managed objectively, devoid of emotional attachment, precisely so we don't become Bernie.
Wait, before we move too far into the philosophy of poker or Stoicism, let's look at what is actually happening in that lab. You're calling Bernie's demise a philosophical failure, a lack of mental construction, but I see a purely biological hijack, the emotional response to unfairness, or in Bernie's case, the overwhelming drive for a biological reward isn't some cultural artifact you can just logic your way out of. It is a hardwired biological reality. You brought up cultural relativism, but I want to look at evolutionary biology, examples that precede human culture entirely.
You're referring to the primate studies, I assume?
Yes, the classic cucumber and grape monkey experiment perfectly illustrates my point. You place two Capuchin monkeys in adjacent cages. You give one monkey a piece of cucumber for completing a simple task, and it is perfectly content. It eats the cucumber happily, but the moment you give the second monkey a sweet, juicy grape for the exact same task, the first monkey becomes visibly enraged. It literally throws the cucumber back at the researcher and rattles the cage.
It throws a tantrum.
Exactly, because it inherently understands that it is not receiving equal treatment. There is no cultural construct there. We see this same primal programming in the rigid but understood hierarchy of a wolf pack, where the alpha eats first and the others accept their biological place in the pecking order. You cannot philosophize away millions of years of evolutionary programming.
But monkeys and wolves aren't playing Texas Hold'em or managing stock portfolios. They operate purely on instinct.
No, they aren't. But the exact same brain mechanics apply to us. Even when a poker player logically understands the mathematics, knowing, for instance, that holding pocket sixes gives them exactly a 20% chance of beating those pocket jacks, the visceral frustration of losing remains acutely painful. Human suffering is highly subjective, but it is entirely real. Even a billionaire who seemingly has mastered all the external variables you mentioned can experience profound paralyzing pain from a physical ailment, a betrayal, or a sudden tragedy. Resilience isn't about claiming the pain of variance is an illusion. True resilience is building the rigorous mental muscle required to survive that biological pain.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective on the relationship between those biological impulses and human agency. The tragedy of Bernie the rat is precisely that he yielded entirely to his biology. He chose the easy dopamine of the button over sustenance because his biology told him it felt good in the moment. Humans fall into this exact trap when they choose the effortless consumption of scrolling endlessly on their phones or watching television all day. Think about the mundane but brilliant example of the neighbor with the cat dispute from the text.
Ah, the shared balcony situation.
Right. This neighbor completely refused to help solve a practical dispute over her cat, continually defecating on a shared balcony. Even when presented with a free, pre-purchased physical barrier to solve the problem, she literally just needed to say yes to installing it. She claimed she was too busy. Yet when the barrier was finally being installed by someone else, her television was blaring all Saturday. She simply preferred the effortless dopamine of the screen to the effort of managing her own life.
Well,
Choosing a difficult path, whether that is meticulously analyzing complex poker probabilities or enduring the sheer frustration of a 45-minute hold time with the Swiss Post, is an intentional, philosophical rejection of the destructive easy road. We are not rats, and we are not monkeys throwing cucumbers. We have the capacity to recognize when we are being sedated and choose the virtue of difficulty instead.
that is a compelling argument, but have you considered the profound exhaustion of that constant rejection? I acknowledge the danger of the pleasure button in our modern pockets, but there is a critical psychological concept we need to address here: learned helplessness. The struggle isn't simply a matter of choosing to reject a mental construct. It is an exhausting, ongoing biological battle against our inherent drive for comfort.
An exhausting battle, sure, but a necessary one if we want to live intentionally.
But look at the toll it takes. Humans, unlike Bernie the rat, suffer from something far worse than blind addiction. We have sobering moments of deep self-awareness. A heavy drinker, even in the depths of their consumption, eventually has moments where they look around and recognize their life is deteriorating. The pleasure becomes tainted by the reality of the destruction. Psychiatrists note that depression is often rooted in this learned helplessness, where an individual feels that no matter what difficult path they take, their actions will have no positive impact on their external circumstances. They feel entirely trapped.
And my argument is that the feeling of being trapped is self-imposed by a faulty worldview. But when someone is trapped in that state of depression or helplessness, telling them their feelings of unfairness are just an ego-driven fallacy is incredibly dismissive. The drive toward comfort, the despair when actions don't yield fair results, that is biological gravity. Resisting it requires tremendous active endurance, not just a simple shift in a philosophical framework.
That is an interesting point, though I would frame it differently. The reason people develop that learned helplessness in the first place is precisely because their philosophical framework is flawed from the outset. They expect the universe to distribute outcomes fairly, which is a mathematical absurdity. When the universe inevitably fails to deliver, they feel helpless. Let's use that poker variance as a perfect microcosm for life's supposed unfairness. Let's really break down the math of that entitlement.
You mean the 80-20 setup?
Exactly. When a player enters a pot as an 80% favorite, holding those pocket jacks, against an opponent's pocket sixes, they feel they deserve to win the whole thing. And when the cards are dealt and the jacks hold up, the player collects 100% of the chips. Statistically speaking, they only deserved 80% of that pot. The universe has effectively overpaid them by 20%.
And nobody complains about being overpaid.
Never. We gladly silently accept this overpayment without a single complaint about fairness. We think it's just our rightful due for playing well. Yet, when that 20% probability inevitably favors the underdog and the pocket sixes win, we suddenly feel cheated. We act as though a cosmic injustice has occurred. This selective outrage proves that fairness is an ego-driven fallacy.
But the outrage doesn't stem from a mathematical calculation. It stems from the expectation of a reward for correct behavior.
But if we truly cared about objective fairness, we would be equally upset when we won 100% of a pot we only had an 80% claim to. We would be handing 20% of our winnings back to the opponent to balance the scales. Recognizing this mathematical reality frees you from the emotional roller coaster. It neutralizes the pain of the bad beat because you realize there was no injustice, just probability playing out over time.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why that mathematical rationalization completely fails in practice. You're treating the human mind like a cheap calculator, but it is a biological pattern-seeking machine. If you believe this drive for fairness is just a cognitive error, how do you explain the psychological weight of prolonged variance? Let's consider the coin flip analogy.
The idea that streaks happen naturally in random distributions.
Right. If you flip a perfectly fair coin 100 times, you will inevitably see massive, unnatural-looking streaks, 5, 6, sometimes 7 heads in a row. Now, the coin has no memory. It doesn't know it owes you a tails to balance the mathematical variance. But the human brain, desperately seeking patterns to survive, looks at a streak of 6 bad outcomes and perceives a systemic threat.
A perceived threat, not an actual one.
To the brain, the difference is irrelevant. Because of this, a highly skilled poker player who consistently makes the right decisions, constantly getting their money in with an 80% advantage, will inevitably experience prolonged, agonizing streaks of bad luck. They might lose 10 times in a row. You cannot simply math away the psychological toll of a devastating streak like that. The intellectual knowledge that you are suffering a statistical anomaly does not stop the visceral sting of the loss. It requires immense emotional control, genuine mental muscle to endure those streaks without giving up or changing your sound strategy. The pain is not a cognitive error to be corrected. It is a psychological weight to be carried. You have to feel the burn of the fire to walk through it.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because it elevates emotional reactions to a place of unassailable truth. It assumes that just because we feel a pattern, we must validate the suffering it causes. Stoicism provides a much more functional mechanism for dealing with these exact scenarios, extending far beyond the poker table to how we manage all externals.
How are we defining externals in this context?
Externals include anything outside the direct control of our will.
Our physical bodies, our financial wealth, and the incredibly frustrating bureaucratic systems we have to navigate on a daily basis. Think about the everyday examples we constantly encounter. The 50-year-old neighbor constantly complaining about age-related back pain, treating it as a personal tragedy rather than a biological certainty. Or consider the fleeting and ultimately forgotten physical beauty of a woman named Marion, a poignant example of how physical attributes degrade and vanish regardless of our desires. Or perhaps most relatable, the sheer incompetence of postal workers.
Ah, the famous 45-minute hold time.
Yes! Spending 45 minutes on hold with a paid Swiss Post number only to speak with a human employee who provides worse logistical information than a simple query to ChatGPT. That employee genuinely does not care if the package is delivered. They just want to clock out, go home, and watch television. Now, you could let your biological pattern-seeking brain interpret all of this as a systemic injustice. You could get angry, feel helpless, or despair over your aging body. But the Stoic response is profound administrative detachment.
Administrative detachment. That sounds like treating yourself as a corporation.
In a way, yes. Whether you are dealing with a failing joint, a financial downswing, or apathetic postal bureaucracy, you must manage it precisely as a peasant manages their farm animals. You act strictly as a good administrator. You fix what can be fixed. You utilize tools like AI to bypass human incompetence where possible. And crucially, you attach absolutely zero emotional weight to the decay or the friction. It is just neutral data. The back pain is a signal to stretch, not a tragedy. The lost package is a logistical error, not a personal affront.
That administrative detachment sounds highly efficient, I'll grant you that. But I find it remarkably cold and ultimately disconnected from the actual human experience. Managing a failing physical body or navigating a devastating financial loss involves profound subjective suffering. You cannot simply administrate your way out of chronic physical pain or the grief of losing your life savings.
But adding emotional suffering to physical pain doesn't heal the body faster. It just makes you miserable while you heal.
It's not about adding suffering. It is about acknowledging reality. Furthermore, relying on cold logic misses the grace required to navigate a society of fallible humans. Yes, an AI could easily solve the Swiss Post's logistical errors by instantly correcting a misspelled name on a package without the apathy of a human worker. But human struggles require a different grace entirely.
Grace doesn't deliver the mail on time, though, does it?
No, but it keeps us connected. Let's go back to the poker table for a moment. After a bad beat, when someone hits that 20% chance and takes your chips, a remarkably healthy coping mechanism is to recognize that your opponent is a real human being. You can choose to find solace in the fact that another human being gets to enjoy a moment of victory. They might be having a terrible week, and this pot brings them joy. That requires empathy, not pure stoic detachment. It requires recognizing their shared humanity and their own subjective struggles. If you view everyone as just farm animals to be managed or obstacles to be bypassed by AI, you strip away the very empathy that makes enduring the harshness of life worthwhile.
I see the emotional appeal of that empathy. It feels warm and validating. But recognizing fairness as a subjective construct remains the ultimate philosophical liberation. Throughout our discussion today, drawing on this synthesis of Stoicism, probability, and human behavior, we see that the human ego is the ultimate source of its own misery. We demand a universe that conforms to our cultural and biological expectations, and we suffer immensely when it operates according to cold variance.
We suffer because we are built to suffer when things are unbalanced.
But we don't have to stay in that suffering. By treating life's variance, whether that is a statistically improbable run of terrible cards, a decaying physical body, or dealing with an apathetic, deeply flawed bureaucracy as neutral data to be managed, we escape the destructive loop. We avoid becoming Bernie the Rat, endlessly seeking the dopamine of instant gratification to numb the pain of a world that refuses to be fair. Liberation comes from dropping the demand for fairness entirely.
And I maintain that true fortitude requires fully respecting our biological reality. We are the monkeys reacting to the cucumber. We cannot pretend that the sting of an unearned loss does not exist. We are wired to seek fairness,
and to feel deep subjective pain when we are denied it. By actively acknowledging the hardwired inherent pain of unfairness, we don't succumb to it, we validate it. That validation is what allows us to actively build the genuine mental resilience required to face life's brutal variance. Resilience isn't found in pretending the fire doesn't burn. It is found in walking through the fire anyway, feeling the heat and continuing forward.
We clearly have an ongoing disagreement regarding the fundamental origins of our sense of justice and how best to manage our reactions to the world. However, I believe we find strong convergence in the conclusion that navigating the unpredictable streaks of good and bad fortune requires immense intentional effort. It is not something that happens passively.
I agree completely. Whether you approach it through Stoic detachment and mathematical rationalization, or through validating and building psychological endurance, facing the variance of life is an active, demanding process. There is so much more depth to explore on how humans assign meaning to the hands they are dealt, and we've really only scratched the surface here. Listeners will have to weigh these frameworks and draw their own conclusions on how best to play the game of life.
Thank you for joining us on The Debate.
Welcome. As usual, I want to introduce to you my last two books, book number 4 and 5. I'm working on my 6th book. I want to introduce to you my 4th and 5th philosophic book. They're all Stoic books. I'll start with number 5. I write all my books in French. In French, it is called La Voie du Diamant Stoique. Here you have the English translation. The Way of the Stoic Diamond. And I also translated it into German, Der Weg des Stoischen Diamond. Here we have my 4th book, Samurai Stoic in French. In English, the translation is Stoic Samurai. And I didn't have the time to post the German version of the book, or upload the German version of the book. But those books are really great. I highly recommend them. My poker teacher should be arriving very shortly. I will jump into the call. We will talk about some poker and probably 1 or 2 philosophic subjects. Good afternoon, Norman.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Any news you have?
Not really. What about you?
Let me think for a moment. Not really.
There's one little subject I can bring up for the introduction. Somebody sent me something that has very little value. 1 USD. I have difficulties receiving it. I don't know why. The first thing, I spent 45 minutes trying to reach over the phone the Swiss post. And during 45 minutes, I hear the same message. Our staff is busy. We will pick up the phone as soon as possible. During 45 minutes, I hear that. Then I hear nothing anymore. It's a paid number. That was really frustrating. I had to hang up after 45 minutes because nobody was picking up. Then I went to the post office and I talked with somebody and he had no clue what I was talking about. What is annoying is that I asked ChatGPT what is going on, and ChatGPT could clearly answer the question better than the employee of the post, because the employee of the post just said nonsense. They said, well, we don't have the package. It is probably DHL or UPS or somebody else. Then I showed him what ChatGPT said. I said, look, it clearly says that it did a transition to a post office. That's not possible if it would be anybody else. Only anything that the post handles goes to a post office. The employee didn't even get it. They were really bad. They couldn't find any number. They couldn't do anything. It just shows you that we still live in a period of time where AI is not utilized, because those logistic questions should all be handled by AI. AI is really good at handling numbers, at figuring stuff out, and at knowing what happens. And also, when there's some issue with the delivery, in that case, maybe they spelled my name not correctly. In that case, AI should change it. Make sure you receive the package. But you should not have to go through humans who don't care, who don't understand anything, and just give you bad answers. I was just surprised that ChatGPT, when I asked ChatGPT to look into it, did understand it correctly and more than the employee whose job it is to do that. They're just incompetent. You can update them. You can give them some more teaching. But it is very painful. It takes a lot of time. They understand very slow. Once they do, they still don't care about. An employee really doesn't give a crap if I receive my package or not, or if it's sent back. They don't care about that. 5 times they did deliver another building instead of the right building. Once, because they couldn't find the address of the post office, they just sent it back. Instead of trying to figure out what is the address of our post office, they just sent it back. It is beyond belief. Let me know what you think about that.
Is the post handled by a private or public business?
Public. Oh, well, I'm not 100% sure. That's a very strange question. It's like asking me if the Swiss trains are handled by public or private. They have so much regulation and they're so tied to the state that to me it makes no difference. They couldn't do anything without the state. The transport here in my city, I did get a message. They said that they did change some time where the bus came, increased 1 or 2 schedules where we had to wait less until we get one more bus. They added, in conformity with the decision of the parliament, the law, we have to do this every year. See, they cannot even decide how much buses arrive, when they arrive, without the state interfering, looking into that business. They have no autonomy. They have to do what legally they are obliged to. The state doesn't say, handle your business as you wish. They say, we will tell you what you have to do. Even if it's private, the state has an immense lever on them, has an immense impact on their business. It's not always this. Sometimes they do it correctly. But to me, it's no fun because when I go to see them and explain to them, I see somebody and I know that the guy doesn't care. I know that the guy, the only thing he wants is to see me disappear, go home and watch some more TV. It's not interesting to talk to him. He doesn't give a crap about what I say. They are polite, they look at you, they open the thing, then they write something on the keyboard. I know that nobody will read what they write. That's the issue. Meaningless. That's why I say it has to be handled by AI. Those kind of stuff have to be handled by AI. Because AI will do the job I asked him to do.
A lot of people send packages. I'm surprised they can have such a bad service then.
It's not 100% bad. So when there goes something wrong, the guy from the post said your last name was spelled not correctly. That's the issue. When the slightest thing is wrong, then they mess it totally up. Normally, UPS and the other private, DHL, when something isn't working correctly, well, straight they send you a mail, they correct the mistake quite fast. But Swiss Post, for example, stopped receiving mails. They don't want any mails anymore. You cannot write to them. You have to call them over the phone and it's a tax number. You will pay money while you wait. It wasn't so expensive. It's just annoying to wait for 45 minutes and you hear nothing and nobody picks up the phone. Let's not waste our day talking about that. They're not always bad. If everything is correct, if the package is fine, if all the numbers on it are correct, if every tax has been paid, then it works. If there's the slightest issue, they mess up. Sometimes even when there's no issue, they mess up. It's not the worst post office in the world. If you compare it to the rest of Europe, it will be average, maybe slightly even above. To me, it's a mentality issue.
A little bit ironic, right, that you can't send mail to post office.
It's total nonsense. It is total 100% nonsense. When the guy from the post office told me we don't have the package, I showed him the answer of ChatGPT. He said, yes, I've read it. We don't have the package. In the end, ChatGPT was right. They did have the package. Because 5 hours later, I asked the Chinese guy for the Swiss number. The Chinese guy could give me the Swiss number. The guy from the post office, who should be able to do that, couldn't do it and gave me bad information. Even when I showed him why he had it. ChatGPT clearly said, look, it went to an office which is owned by the Swiss Post. Because of that, you have the number. It wasn't enough for him. He said, no, we don't. They give you bad information. Then they write some message and nobody reads it. Let's stop talking about that. It won't make our life better. It will not add anything. I just think that all those kind of meaningless jobs that nobody wants really to do, they want it because of the pay. They get a very nice salary and all that. For that, they want it. Really do the job, they're not interested in it. I'm up to a certain extent, I am interested in having a poker lesson. Even if it's not the most pleasant thing to play poker, you have to handle. Till the variance is huge, you never know if you do any progress. Even though after all that, I still have an interest in becoming better in poker. A guy who has his 9-to-5 job, there's nothing he can wait for. There's nothing he can hope for. He just wants to retire and then be able to watch TV all day long. When that's your mentality is, and that's the mentality of everybody I know. Do you remember my neighbor with her cat?
I didn't know they had a cat.
It was the cat that came on my balcony. We talked about it.
I remember. Yes, I remember.
The cat kept doing that. I said, during the winter, it's not so bad because the door of my balcony is not open. He will not go into my apartment. He started marking his territory. He started defecating, doing the rest of his business constantly on my balcony. I went and talked a couple of times. She never did anything. At the end, I said, we have to find a solution. If not, I will have to take legal steps. It smells really bad. I cannot handle that. I cannot have that on my balcony. I made her a proposition. I said, let's go together, pick something up that we can place between both of our balconies, a barricade, something that stops the cat from coming. Then we solve the issue and he won't spend his time on my balcony anymore. And she told me, I can't, I'm busy. I said, let's do it the weekend when you don't work. I'm too busy, I cannot come. I said, then I'll go to the shop and pick something up. I don't want to do that because if I buy something you don't like, then you won't use it. She said, I promise you, I will use it and we will install it. I went, I bought the necessary stuff. I brought it to her. Then I did install it. When I arrived, the TV was working all day long. She had a nice Saturday. She was enjoying her time. She explained to me that she has no time, that she cannot come with me. Now the thing is, to be honest, she let me install it. The issue seems to be solved, I hope forever. That's the good news. That's how people, they just want you to do everything. They want to spend their time as they're pleased. More than 9 times out of 10, much more than that, 9.999. How they want to spend their time is TV. And that's more important than pick something up or do something, care about the kids or anything else. It's really sad. You are multitasking, Norman.
Not really. It's like fidgeting.
People who play with stupid stuff like this.
Something like this. Something like this, yeah. It's even more stupid than the TV, I guess. I don't have to do it. I feel I'm more relaxed when I'm doing something like that.
In schools, they take a pen. They play with the pen.
Exactly. It's something similar to it. It didn't really have any meaning to what I was doing there. With what you said about the TV, I was listening to it. It's just some activity. With the TV, it shows how sad people's lives are, then that it's the best thing they do.
All those things are addictive. If you stop doing them, then you feel strange. Then you get some boredom. Then you have to think about your life, situations. Most of the times you think about the bills that are hard to pay. It's all frustrating. It's easy to just consume, especially when that's something where you don't have to do any effort. For me, this lesson won't be easy because you will ask difficult questions.
I tried to do it,
which is great. If you wouldn't do that, I wouldn't learn anything.
I didn't do lessons that at first. At first, I tried to teach more a school teacher does, where you're just saying a lot of stuff. Then I noticed sometimes I say a lot of stuff and then I lost the person listening a long time ago. That's why I started to do more of this, where I try to put everything as a question and always back to the question. Because otherwise it's very easy to lose focus as well with what I'm saying.
No, it's perfect that you do that. I call it a Socratic way of teaching. Most of my friends, even if I would offer them your service, you would be willing to teach them. They wouldn't want to do it. Even if it's free, they wouldn't find any interest in it.
My friends are like that as well. I guess maybe not everyone. They find it too tiring. They would be like, it's not fun if it's difficult.
Well, I'm talking from my perspective as your student. For you, it takes an effort. You have to sacrifice the time we spend together. It is not just if you go for a vacation, you're on a beach and you spend as much time at the swimming pool, you go for a walk whenever you want. There comes some obligations with it. It's work. Most people don't want to do that. They don't want to put in that effort, even if they could, even if they are just as good as you are or could be one day.
The progress feels good, though. I could go insane if I worked some spot at post office. How you describe just doing something where you're fixed in that thing forever. You don't see any escape from it, nothing changing. It's very repetitive. It's mentally tough that way. Even if this stuff is difficult in some ways, I find it, at least it's not so boring.
You don't feel any achievement if it's too easy. Up to a certain extent, it has to be difficult. Because if it would be too easy, then you wouldn't really care about it. You would do it once or twice, then you wouldn't anymore.
The stuff you said with how poker is tough, I sometimes feel that also. It sometimes can feel a little bit impossible. Not always, sometimes. That's what makes it interesting. Feels a challenge that keeps it fresh. It was similar to that. There's something good in something being difficult. It gives this thing called pride, feeling happy with your achievements if you're able to progress or do well in something.
It's an intellectual achievement. And for me, it's important because the lessons I can take out of it, I can transport them into the markets. It's an exercise that does me a lot of good. The last two games I played didn't go in my favor. I looked at how they went for other players. A lot of players were unlucky. There were players who had excellent hands, pocket aces, very good hands, ace king offsuit, top hands, pocket queens. They lost to stuff like 4-5 suited. Even me had to call a couple of big bets, do an all-in. Every time I had the better hand, every time I lost. I told myself I took the right decision. It didn't go in my favor. The funny thing is I was not the only one who did get that treatment. That's actually the interesting thing, that it doesn't go in your favor all the time, because you have to be able to handle that frustration. Keep on doing it. That's really good for your mental fortitude, for your mental muscle. Do not give up.
A lot of people, when I talk about this mental poker subject, which is something that is not very obvious to a lot of people, there's some few elements to it. The main element is this: you're in an all-in, then one player is a favorite, the other player who has a worse hand usually. If you are a favorite, there's two things that can happen. Either you get the expected outcome or you're gonna get unlucky. If you're an 80% favorite, you're either gonna win the pot, which is expected, or you're gonna get unlucky. If you're the player with the worst hand in an all-in, there's two things that can happen. Either the expected thing happens, you lose, or you can get lucky, get like a magical gift it can feel, something like that. Actually, it feels very good to get lucky. The problem with that is only players who have the worst hand get to experience that feeling quite often, because they have the worst hand there. In this sense, as a good player, most of the time you have the best hand. Most of the time, you're either gonna get the expected result or you're gonna be unlucky, either of those two. It's very rarely that as a good player, you get to have the bad hand, make the bad decision, then still get the reward, feel lucky that you escaped from a scenario. That's just something mentally that has helped some people to recognize this, that if it feels sometimes the other players can get lucky, but not much you, part of the reason is to get lucky first means you have to be in a bad scenario where you need to get lucky. That's the first part of that. Does that make sense?
Yes, Norman. For me, sometimes you get the impression that there's a long period where you are unlucky. Then you get an impression that sometimes the opposite happens. There's an extended period where if you weren't the favorite, even if the other one had way better hands, you should have folded, you get lucky. For example, I had to do an all-in with pocket sixes. My opponent had pocket jacks. My chance of winning were quite close to zero. A six came, I won. When that happens, I'm not jumping up off my seat. I'm telling myself, I did win this. Actually, normally I should have lost it. This time I did get lucky, next time I won't. That's what I tell me. It gives me no joy because I tell myself, next time I will not be lucky. One more thing. We live in a world of instant gratification. For most people to think about the future, to think about what I just told you, that's not in their habit. We feel it much more than joy. When we lose money, it weighs twice as much as when we win money. If I make you win 100 USD and I make you lose 100, you are not at zero in your feelings. You feel bad because the loss has more impact on you than the win you just made. One more thing, there's a rat. I'm not sure if that's 100% correct because I didn't fact check it. There's a rat. It's called Bernie. They actually gave him all the gratification he wanted. He just had to push a button. Every time he pressed the button, some chemicals were released in his brain. He felt really good. Once he understood that, he pressed the button an immense amount of times. Everything else had no more meaning to him. He stopped eating. They gave him a female. He didn't react to her. There was nothing on earth he could be interested in other than pressing that button. When I see people with the phone, I feel the same, that they have the same button in their pocket. They keep pressing it all day long because it's very easy to get feeling of gratification, enjoyment with the shorts, the reels. They're all made to be addictive. Let me hear what you think about my feelings towards poker, winning or losing.
I guess the first thing about this being streaky, the best example I have for that is flipping the coin. I don't know if we ever did this with you. Did you ever flip a coin with? Do you remember we did something like that or
We
no?
talked about it. We did talk about it. I did look into it. You can have quite immense amount of times. You can have always tail or heads. It's quite surprising because normally there shouldn't be such extended period of time where you always get the same result. I know that.
Essentially, the coin doesn't know that it has to switch sides. It doesn't.
But it will do it. It will do it quite very close to 50% if you do it on long enough. Short term, it can be very messy.
Yes,
The results you
yes,
get.
exactly. The longer you flip a
But it's still strange that, as you said, he doesn't, that he has to switch sides. If you give him just 10 trials or 20 or 30 or 50, he does that, he has to switch sides. Once you give him 500, 5,000 or 50,000, then he suddenly knows that he has to switch sides.
even then it doesn't, then it just averages out all his mistakes. We can look at it a little bit. Yeah.
We don't have to do it because we already did that.
Let's put it 100 times.
Actually, you didn't show me that page.
It's gonna go 100 times. See how it already started with 2 tails, 6 heads. Now it got 5 tails.
It doesn't look random.
It looks very fake. Look, the first row, that was crazy.
Second one looks a little better.
Too perfect even at the start. 2, 3. Let's look at it a bit. These could be your good and bad days in poker. Imagine being a poker player. Bad day, bad day, bad day. Good day, bad, bad, bad. This was a very big stretch in a row here for...
It looks my results in poker.
That's good then. It's just the randomness is quite crazy in this way. It's tough to mentally deal with this. It's almost done. 10 more flips. Some rows are less random. In the end, it's 53-47 here, which is not perfectly in the middle, but the more we would flip, the closer it would get to 50-50. The first row already, we got 6 in a row, 5 in a row, then another 6 in a row. If you don't believe it, you could flip with a real coin, write them out. Very likely it would be something similar to this.
I believe it, Norman. I know that that's the case. That is what we face as well in the markets as in poker. We have to live with it.
Exactly. Sometimes get a lot of down periods. All these things are difficult.
When I think about the rat that they call Bernie, it is the opposite. Bernie gets a lot of joy pleasures. We will get a lot of pain.
That's a good point.
Bernie is not in a good situation because he kills himself with that. It makes you weak. If you cannot handle frustration, if you cannot handle fortune, you cannot live with it and get back into the game, never give up. Just makes you weak. It's the opposite of Stoicism. You wanted to say something. Sorry for interrupting you.
It's good. It's interesting what you said. It's true, yes. Sometimes it looks that the stupid people get to have the most fun. They just get to watch TV all day. They get to just talk about their stupid problems, all that.
Which is magical. You might not notice. They only care about themselves. If you talk to them and say, if you look at it in a different way, then it would be easier for you. They don't care. They just want to talk about their life. Stay at the level they are.
I would think that these people can have the biggest troubles sometimes.
Are the troubles really big if you don't realize that they are in trouble? Some of them, they are soft that they don't even get that.
I guess then the recommendation could be drink until you're stupid. Then you won't see the problems.
Most people, they're not result-oriented. You are result-oriented because you have to be in the job you do. It's the same for me. I have to look at my results, even if they aren't good, they're not going in my favor. Most people, they are not result-oriented. If you don't care about your results, then what do you care about? They'll make something up, love or nature. They spend very little time in nature. They cannot really talk about love. The ideal of love, it doesn't materialize in their life most of the time.
I mean, these are big questions, yes.
You wouldn't change your life for the life of Bernie. Even if you feel more pain, I'm sure that you feel an immense amount of more pain than Bernie the rat. And you still wouldn't switch. If they tell you you could be Bernie and we take care of you, every time you don't feel good, you just press a button. I'm sure you wouldn't want that life. But a lot of people do. That's what's so sad. Tell me what the issue is.
The issue is, well, I've had moments in my life where I'm more similar to this Bernie. Then the problem is at some point, I realize what I'm doing. I realize that it leads nowhere. It's tough to be ignorant if you're not a rat. As a human, it's very difficult to not recognize the things. Drinking, having a good time, I start thinking how this will actually ruin my life and will lead me to nothing good, just give me all sorts of problems. Suddenly, I cannot enjoy it anymore. The enjoyment is only there until I'm able to forget about it or not think about it. It's very tough to not think about the reality 24/7. Even as a heavy drinker, you would still have some sobering moments. And in these moments, you would recognize that it's just making your life actually worse, even though it feels very pleasurable in the moment. To me, that's going to take away some of that pleasure.
I had to think about learnedness. Psychiatrists think that in depression, people are suffering mainly of learned hopelessness. They think that whatever they do, it wouldn't have any good impact on their life. They cannot change the situation. They cannot do anything to make the relationship with the wife or the kids any better, to get a better job. They just have no impact on external things.
It's difficult for me to believe that because I know I can make things either better or worse.
You are smart enough to look at stuff critically and analytically to come to the right conclusion. For example, that a small fleeting pleasure, that intoxication. Well, the small pleasure you get out of it is not worth it. For other people, that's all they have. That's all they can think about. That's all they know. It takes less effort to buy some booze than to sit on a poker table and think about some probabilities. If you give 10 road and make some of them very easy and some very hard, people want to choose the easy way, which makes sense up to a certain extent. If you do that too much, it will destroy your life. Luxuries and pleasures, that's always the easy road. What I just told you is a very Stoic thought. What do you think? Do we take a look at some hands? I have a couple we could do. You said once we talk about some flushes. I recognize flushes easily.
I remember. Something else before that. I heard you say you had sixes, they had queens. You said jacks. Do you know how often sixes wins against jacks out of 10 times?
I want to say 20%. Maybe it's even lower than that.
It is 20%. Out of 10 times, that would be how many win?
2 times.
Out of 100 times?
20.
In that coin flipping thing, 20 of those would have been for sixes, 80 would have been for jacks, if that makes some sense.
I know that, Norman. That's why I know that I should have lost the hand.
No.
Win it with my 6, but I should have lost it.
That's what I disagree with.
You tell me that sometimes you will win with it. I know that.
You deserve to win it 20%.
If I would have known the strength of my opponent, I wouldn't have played that hand. For me, it is nice if when I do my all-in with pocket kings, I finally lose to a flush or straight, then at least I can tell myself I did the right decision. But when I do with pocket six, I know that it was the moment to do the all-in, that I did the right decision. It's just not the same. The variance is so high that it's very hard to know if you're on the right track. Probably for you that's easier because you play a lot of hands. You can always compare. You can look back the last month or the last 6 months. Then you realize that you are profitable, you made some money, that you did the best, that it worked out. For me, since I don't play that much, it is very hard to see. I'm back at break even. How many times did I fall below break even. How do I know that this time will be any different?
Well, we don't know before.
Oh, we know it too. Actually, because you looked at my results, you told me that I'm a profitable poker player. Because of that, it should go into my favor. If I have to play 100,000 hands, that will take a very long time. I do it at the quantity I'm playing.
Hopefully it takes less than that. One more thing I wanted to say with the sixes. One thing that helped me mentally is recognizing every time I have the jacks that I was actually rewarded a little bit extra that I deserved. What by that is, based on math, if you have sixes, you deserve 20% of the pot. If you have jacks, you deserve 80% of the pot. Life would be very nice in poker if it would be this way. If you have sixes, you're not gonna go out of the tournament, you're gonna get 20% of the pot. The best hand would get to 80% of the pot. It would feel way more fair in poker. That poker's not that way. What helped me was realizing every time I win the pot with jacks that I was lucky.
Yeah.
People don't think about that.
I understand. Because you should only get 80% of the pot, you did get 100% of the pot.
Actually, I was rewarded more for that's if I one day lose with my jacks against sixes, I feel it was due time for that happened. Because all those previous times, I got 20% extra.
When you win with sixes, you should have gotten only 20% of the pot. You did get 100% of the pot.
There was many times I got nothing with my sixes. When I finally get 100, it should even out this way. You don't get the 20% every time. You get 0, 0, 0, then you get 100. That system is there to make it more confusing or addicting for people. It's a little bit if you're a rat or a slave, maybe, thinking of John's plantation here. There's some pattern to what the master is doing. Sometimes he still will give you a punishment if you don't deserve it. Another time, master will give you a reward for some reason, even though you feel you didn't actually deserve it. I'm not exactly sure of the psychology. The psychological effect of people try less. Because a mindset effect it has is that what's the point of even trying? If I can try my hardest, the master can still punish me. Or I can do something stupid and still get rewarded for it. This can make people into this gambler's mindset. Does that make some sense?
I'm not sure about how you will react with the example you gave, because I have the idea that it can go in both ways. Once you can give up because you think that your efforts are meaningless, you will get punished anyway. It could go the other way. You start thinking about your life, thinking that maybe your thoughts were pure, maybe there was something wrong with you, there was a reason why the master punished, you don't realize it because you're stupid. Maybe you think then that the master is more a god figure and something natural, that you should even more devotion to him.
Exactly. It can be felt different ways. The main thing is it will feel unfair. How people deal with unfairness can be different. Some people are humble enough to take it, and other people are worse at taking the unfairness, accepting that everybody gets bad, unfair moments. Everybody has their sufferings, still keeping the positive spirits. It's difficult for some people more than others.
A lot of things are concepts that we have learned. They don't really exist in nature. We did get indoctrinated, brainwashed into believing that. North Korean did teach me that, because for them love doesn't exist. The only love they can conceive is for the Communistic Party, Kim Jong-un. Apart from that, love doesn't exist. When they marry somebody, have kids, it is just for the Communistic Party. It's not for themselves they do it or for their personal interest. They only think about the glory of the Communistic Party, how they can contribute into it. Love on a personal basic doesn't exist for them. When we talk about fairness, is that a construct we made up, or is it something that is inherent in us? I want to argue that it is inherent in us. When you look at monkeys in a cage, if you keep one of them expensive fruit, grapes, other one something less expensive, cucumbers, the monkey that receives cucumbers gets mad. He throws the cucumber out or the carrot out of his cage, He wants to get the sweet grapes like the other monkey. He understands that it's not fair, that he doesn't get the same treatment than the monkey in a cage next to him. There is stuff that is really deep embedded in us. When you look at wolves, when they eat, once they make a kill, the alpha male eats first. The other wolves have to wait their turn. If they step out of line, they are put back in line. They accept that. They think that it is normal. Even if they contribute to the kill, even if they run as much as the alpha male, they still accept the picking order. It's very hard to say. The important question, the important subject is just how you react to it. What do you do if you're not the alpha male? Do you still want to be part of the group? Or do you want to live on your own, become a solitary wolf? What somebody thinks is fair, another person will not come to the same conclusion. What is justice for a North Korean is not the same as for me. They are learned constructs. If you take the Incas or some other tribes, North America, before the European arrived, they had a different notion about what is just. Certain of them did sacrifice humans or even babies. For them, that was normal. That was justice. That was the definition of justice. What you think is just a mental construct. You might think it's not just that you lose in poker. That's because you have an ego, you think you have to win, that you are better, that just fortune goes against you. All those are mental construct up to a certain degree. But in poker, it's not just a mental construct. In the rest of your life, it's a lot of mental construct because you cannot just do some math, figure out if it's true or wrong what you did. In poker, the nice thing and the easy thing is that you just can calculate it. Find the answer to your question. In life, it's way harder to calculate that with a lot of subjects. If you do calculate it, well, then it might not look good. Because why would you ever marry somebody if you have a chance of divorce that is 60%? Even if you don't divorce, then you still won't be happy. There are not a lot of couples who are really happy with each other, have a delightful time they spend together. The only thing that matters is how you act your losses, your wins in life. What you do when fortune is not on your side. Okay, I was saying that the only thing that happens is how you react to the facts of life, what you will do. Things are mental constructs. Your reaction and endurance to them is the important thing. What do you think about all my rant?
You made it quite philosophical. I agree that people react in different ways. That's part of the challenge in poker. Certainly, I try my best to react in the best possible way I can. Overall, it's still what I said is still important to recognize. If you're the monkey there in your story and you know that this is the game, that sometimes you get a cucumber, sometimes the other monkeys get a fruit, and sometimes you could be the other monkey, then it's probably easy for you to have control over yourself.
But what do you do if you are always the monkey who only gets cucumbers? Everybody else gets the juicy grapes. What do you do then? How do you react? How do you look on life?
I don't know. I haven't had that experience.
The monkey to whom that happens, he gets mad. That's the first feeling he gets. What if you keep doing that? Will he at the end eat the food you give him, even if it's not so juicy, or will he let himself die, starve to death? What will he do as a protest? When will he give it up for asking for justice?
I don't think getting mad helps very often in that scenario. It's an ego question. Why not accept a cucumber? Be full for that, and it's still better than nothing.
It's still a mean thing. What you're saying is you don't deserve any better. That's why you only get cucumber. I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about the
I disagree. Because deserve is putting some inherent ration to it. The same thing is in poker. It's not about whether you deserve. Does someone who get in a car accident, 5-year-old, deserve it, that they have to be in a wheelchair the rest of their life? It's more about just accepting how things are. It's not necessarily targeted at you one way or another. It's not the experimenters hate you, especially you as a monkey, that they hate you. It's just that someone had to be that monkey in the experiment. It makes a difference for them.
But they did select you. They could have selected another one.
Why matter? I don't see how that even matters.
Because our society is based on that principle.
I don't care about the value structure, opinions. of those experimenters who chose the monkeys. It doesn't make me any worse or better if someone tells me I'm a good or bad monkey. I'm
But
still me.
if you were that monkey, wouldn't you want to why you get that treatment while everybody else gets the better treatment? You would. You tell me that doesn't matter. If it happens to you, you will think a lot about it for a very long time. Even if you say it doesn't matter, I'm all happy with my cucumber.
There's this religious thing that God puts the most difficult tests in front of the people who are the most strongest, the most advanced. It puts the biggest challenges to the strongest people. That's a whole discussion in itself. But getting a little back to poker from philosophy, in poker, everybody gets these moments. Everybody will sometimes lose with their jacks against sixes, win with their sixes against jacks. Realizing that everybody will have their shared bad moments. You could even be a billionaire. You might have some horrific days where you have a bad back pain. You have a huge toothache. Your wife cheats on you even though you're a billionaire. Your children might say they never want to see you again because you're a billionaire. You might get in a car accident with your Ferrari. Clear to me who suffers more or less in life. It's very subjective. We really never see the internal state of other people. It can very easily feel it's the worst experience we're having, whereas the other people, what we perceive as being very enjoyable, could be very painful for them. They could be in tremendous pain, even though they're a billionaire. Every day they could be suffering, wishing for their life to end. Sometimes rich people also make suicides. It happens.
The good thing is that we are not monkeys. We are not in a cage. Even if our condition is not way better than the monkey one, we still can use our intelligence, make it a little better. It is easy to stop playing the game if we don't want to play it anymore. We can just use our intelligence to fight it through until the end.
Even in a bad scenario, we can make the best out of a bad scenario. You could still see an opportunity to show your character, show how mentally resilient you are. You could still get guillotined with some pride and self-respect and honor.
I agree with that, Norman.
All right. The other thing I wanted to do was with combinations, yes, flushes. You remember that part. We did a lot of these types of lessons. It can wait a little bit until next week, for example. How about we review those hands you have? That would be good. Although there was one more thing which I wanted to say is that sometimes it's easy to forget in poker that your opponents there are real people. Actually, there's nothing bad that happens if you get unlucky or lose. It just means someone else had a good day. You could see the positive in that someone else could have a nice moment. Instead of thinking of the loss, you could think about how someone else can enjoy the victory. Maybe they deserved it once in a while.
I agree with that, Norman. It is just that for me, having a good day, what does it mean? You made some money? Say having a good year or having a good decade. Then it would be more interesting. A day, what's the point if you have a good day today if the next 9 days are all bad? We are focusing too much on money because according to me, it is not because you made, even in poker, 5, 8 or 10 million this year, that everything is fine or that you had a good year, that you're happy. I'm sure you're happy about the results you get on the poker table. Probably that's not the only thing that matters to you. If you get taxed a lot, if you made some bad investments, you lost it all, you're not happy with how things turn out at home with your wife, there are a lot of things. A new law comes, takes all your winnings away. The amount is meaningless if you cannot give your life some value beyond that. Maybe for you it's enough if you just make some money. Yes, it's nice to have a feeling of having some impact on our future financially. I'm not sure that it's enough to give meaning to your life. Be happy with it. Everybody can decide that for himself.
Health is way more important than money, for example.
If you choose that, Norman, you choose an external thing just as money. You have little impact on that. Look, George, the husband of Marianne, he takes a lot of painkillers all the time. He's always complaining about his health. Should he be unhappy because of that? Should he just try to stop with the painkillers and try something else? I've met yesterday another one of my neighbors. He wanted to shake my hand. He started complaining about his life. He has back pains, he had some treatments. He had to go to the swimming pool, make some movements because movements get very hard. Should he be unhappy just because he is turning 50? He gets age-related issues. You should not cling to that too much. I would recommend to him to fast and try if that could improve his health. I don't think you should choose something when you want your happiness that fades away. Beauty, wealth, or health, all those things people admire, they are very ephemeral. They disappear so fast. It's very hard to remember them. Marianne was a very beautiful woman. There are just a few pictures who survived. Even showing that she was a very beautiful woman is really hard. It's all gone. Who remembers? Husband a little. Who cares? Even he, I don't think he thinks a lot about her beauty when she was 18 or 25. If you cling on external stuff, it will all fade away. It will all disappear.
I'm not talking about clinging. I'm talking about making the best with what you got. Even if you have a sick body, you can still either treat it like a temple or you can treat it like some garbage.
You should try to do the best. It's just being a good administrator. It's just taking care of what was given to you and trying to take care about it the best. Maybe you're a peasant and you have some animals. You try to manage it in the best way possible. The same, you manage your body, your finances, because that's what fortune has given to you and you should try to manage it the best. But it's just a management. It's not something that has a very high value. Actually, when you're wealthy, you often give that management to somebody else just so you don't have to think about it. And your body is the same thing. You just manage it. You try to take care of it. It's still an external thing. It will fade away. You won't be healthy forever. Even if you fast 14 hours a day, it won't make you immortal. We won't look at all the hands. Let's just do a few. We are capable of talking more than half an hour on just one hand. We really don't have to do them all. Player 6, player 8 did call. I have 26 big blinds. What do I do, Norman?
Seems a close decision. Let's start with the good news. Is there's not too much bubble pressure. Why isn't there too much bubble pressure?
Well, I'm last. I'm player 6. There are still 6 players. If there were 4 players, then it would be bubble pressure. There are 6 players. There's not so much bubble.
You have a good hand, strong hand. That's good. It's actually tough here what to do. It's a lot of big blinds to go all in for, that's for sure. We would be going all into a bigger stack who possibly could gamble with us, which is dangerous. If you can you re-raise to something 8 here? Would that do something? I guess that seems the most sensible. Then they will just both call. That's maybe fine. You could consider re-raising here to all in to something 9 or 8 big blinds.
That's what you would have done.
It's tough to say. I don't think there's a clear answer here, but I don't like the all in. I feel like the reward is not so important. The 6 big blinds to gamble all the chips. To me, that seems unnecessary. You could call. Call is very prudent here, but I don't see what's bad about re-raising because you're not risking all the chips. They could fold. Even if they don't fold, you have a good hand, which has chances. I don't see a bad side to re-raising.
The bad side is, to me, I lose with my ace-jack suited. The best case scenario, only my re-raise, my 8 big blinds. 5x would be 10 big blinds. Would you think that's okay? 10 big blinds?
It feels a little unnecessarily big. I guess it's fine. I wouldn't hate it. It's fine.
Then it doesn't turn in my favor. Then I'm left with 16 big blinds. It gets hard to win that tournament.
16 is still a lot.
It's not a lot. According to me, it's not a lot. We'll have to double up. And we'll have to do that in a very short period of time. Because if not, the blinds will kill me. Yes, it happens sometimes. It happens once out of 10 times that I can make it back. Or 2 times out of 10. It doesn't happen 8 times out of 10 that I would make it back. It's hard. I will have to fight a very tough fight.
That's the worst case scenario. Best case is they both fold, or you hit an ace or a jack on the flop or make a flush. There's good size that can happen.
I just want to tell you my psychological issue with that. You're the better player. I'm sure you take the better decision than I do. The psychological issue is that I will have to fight a hard fight. If I do an all-in, well, there's less chance that they will call. If they call, probably it won't be 2. Maybe I double up then, which would be very nice. If it doesn't go in my favor, well, then I'm just out of the game. I can play another game. I will have to die a long and extended death. It won't be painful. Because if this doesn't go in my favor, well, the next 20 hands could be painful until it stops. I just bring that to mind. I get it, Norman. I should accept that outcome, keep fighting.
I accept that there might be some suffering in a battle. And it's the same if you go running. You will get a bit tired. Your muscles will get a workout in. With philosophy, your brain will sometimes get a little tired, thinking a lot is hard. You said it many times. People don't like to talk with you about these deep subjects because they say it's too difficult. I don't want to think about it. It's the same with poker, that you shouldn't seek for the easy way out. You should be there to best.
Just one more thing, Norman. I will have to gamble. It's just a question of when. Isn't it better to gamble with ace jacks than have to gamble with 10-8 suited? Because that's the best I will get.
I disagree with that, because let's say you win this all in. Does that mean you don't have to gamble anymore? If you win this, they both fold. Does that mean you don't have to gamble anymore this tournament?
No, I still will have to gamble for first place.
So, no, even for the bubble, even if you win this, you're not guaranteed for the bubble. My point here being is, you're gonna have to gamble. It's better to gamble less times than more times, because every gamble is danger. Gamble on the bubble. Gamble if you have your 7 big blinds. You don't have to gamble right now. It's unnecessary.
I will have to gamble. I agree with that, Norman. If I win this, as we said, the pressure for gambling is way less. I will be able to wait for a moment that I find best to do it.
You can still wait. You have 27 big blinds. There's no rush at the moment.
I only have 10 left if that doesn't go in my favor.
Then just call them. I disagree. I don't agree. If you're confident that this won't work, then don't do it. You make it sound like I'm recommending a play that has no chances to work. If you feel this way, then don't do that. The only reason I'm recommending this is I would think there's chances for this to work.
That it's good. Your 5x. I thought about the 5x. As Bernie, I wanted to make it easier on me. I didn't want to keep fighting with 16 against people who have 60 big blinds. I thought that I should do my all-in. It's not that I'm thinking you give bad advice, Norman. I'm trying to figure out why I didn't do what you told, because I thought about doing a 5x. Not 8 big blinds, but I thought about doing a 5x. I did take the all-in. I just try to figure out why I did it, so that in the future maybe I won't do it. That's all. I'm not saying your advice is bad, Norman. Actually, I did just call an all-in. I did 11. Actually, I did what you recommend.
Well, a little more than I would have gone. Why do this, though? What's the benefit?
Because I didn't think that it was a harmful flop. I thought that the chance of him having a 10, a queen, is quite low. So I thought he would fold.
He called 11 big blinds. What do you think he has? What did he have? 5-6 suited? He called your 11 big blinds with 5-6 suited? I don't think so.
King 10 suited.
Well, then he has a 10.
Then King 9 suited.
This is unnecessary. I don't think he'll fold very often. Just could slow down, see what happens.
Thank you.
You did fold. Good for you there.
Not really good. I didn't do what I should have done.
It was quite risky hand. It's okay.
Here, he wants to gamble with me. Do I accept the gamble or do I fold?
Well, let's start with your odds here. What does the odds say?
My odds, they say 2 to 1.
Is that good or bad?
I don't think it's amazing.
It's still better than 1 to 1. It means you only have to win it 1 in 3 times. That's what it means. There's a percent there, 33%. Second thing here is, how many big blinds do you have to put in the table here?
Like 10.
Okay, could you take that loss, still be fine?
Yes.
Yes, you would still have 36 left. It's worth it here. Do you know how often you hit an ace or a king on the flop? Around 1 in 3 times.
It's way more than I thought.
That's decent, right? I think you can risk it here.
But on the flop, I don't think I make 1 in 3 times.
You do.
On the flop, with just 3 cards,
Yes, exactly.
it's still a break-even game play done.
Well, you can win more if you hit that, because there's still more chips to be won. You could get an extra reward. Other players might call in here. It's a fine scenario for you.
What did I do, Norman?
Probably gambled and went all in. Well, you folded. It's your experience. You thought you had a very good hand. I thought too. I just think it's maybe not worse than yours. Maybe it's pocket queens. Then you have that good chance. You hit an ace or a king, or if he has pocket jacks. I think you can risk it here. You still have some cushion, some safety net there. That's my reasoning of this. Can definitely limp it. Sorry if I'm a bit irritated today. I somehow feel I'm not maybe in my best mentality.
It's all right, Norman. Don't worry. I can hear it. What would be interesting for you, don't have to tell me, if you figured out why you were irritated. If I said something that really irritated you, then I'm sorry for that.
It's my own stuff. What am I? I guess just don't have the best control over how I feel today. There's external reason for it. I guess you could say I'm maybe a bit hungry or a bit tired or all these things. It's all really in my control. Even if I am, then I should still be able to keep my composure.
Yes, I get that, Norman. The feeling you get for I don't know what reason, that kind of feeling I have to face sometimes when I play poker. I still have to get back to the game. It's hard because when you play poker, you tell yourself, when you feel that, well, just stop. The issue, if you stop too much, it won't do you any good. I went for 2/3 of a pot. I did that because I didn't like the spades. I wanted them to fold. See actually the turn or the river. I would have gone for half pot.
I don't mind it. Let's hope he also doesn't like it. It's a good time to slow down. I hope you did. Yeah. Maybe he has something like King 10. There's some hope. Quite dangerous still to bluff here. You would only be bluffing to win a split pot. Mostly you should just check and hope he checks, and then you win half of it. He makes a big bet. I would fold here because you're playing the board. The maximum your reward can be here is half the pot. What's half the pot?
It would be 8 big blinds.
No, you have to look at the pot after he bets, that green number at the top of the table.
Okay, then it would be 13 big blinds.
Yeah, it would be 13 big blinds. It's almost same as pot. You have to have close to 50% confidence that he's bluffing. He could have any spade. He called a big bet on the flop. Your plan was to not hit a spade, essentially. Once we hit spades, I don't think you should invest more into this pot. I would fold you. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Why did he call a big bet on the flop? Because he had a high spade there. I wouldn't say very bad things about this hand. The only thing I would say is if he's bluffing on the river, why would he go so big? To me, that's a bit strange.
There's the bluffing issue. For me, I did get the impression that there was already a big pot, that I only had to win it. How many times do I have to win this?
Half, close to half. Did that help you to recognize that you're only gonna win half the pot at most?
I knew that I was only gonna win half the pot. I knew that.
That makes the odds half as good. It's like 1.11 to 1.
In that case, I shouldn't have done it because it puts me out of the tournament. It didn't put me out of the tournament. Why shouldn't I have done it? It looks, if it's a break-even scenario, a little better for me.
How can you win this pot? You have no hand.
Okay, I get it. The issue is the probability of him having a spade is too high.
The reason for that is...
It's not that I have no hand. I have 2 pairs on this.
No, you have a flush, actually. You have a flush.
I only have a flush.
If you click on the flop, what happened on the flop? Why did he call this bet? What must he have?
He must have had a draw to a flush or a king.
Can a king have a draw to the flush?
Yes.
If he has a draw to the flush, then he made his flush. If he had a king, it's still possible he made a flush if he had king 10, the 10 was a spade. It's very rare. He would need something like king jack of hearts, then to make a big bluff against you on the river. It's possible. It's not very likely.
My mistake was that I thought that the pot is too big, that I could win it enough times. I couldn't fold. That was my mistake. I wanted actually to fold. I thought that there was too much money. I shouldn't do the fold. It was just me looking wrong at it because I didn't realize it's only 1.11, the odd. that my chance of beating him is very low. Because here's my mistake. Look, I didn't think that the ace here matters because it gives him a higher flush than what I have. I have a flush with a king, he has a flush with an ace. Is that why he did win?
What are his 5 best cards?
Ace, king, queen, 7.
You said how many cards?
Ace, king, queen, 7, then 6.
Right. That's an ace high flush, is what it's called.
Any other flush, it would have been split pot.
No. What are your best 5 cards?
King, queen, 7, 6, 2.
Let's say somehow he has the 3 of spades. Can we imagine the ace is a 3 of spades?
He would still have one.
What would his 5 best cards be if his ace would be 3 of spades?
It would be king, queen, 7, 6, 3.
Exactly. There would be a difference. The 5th card would be different.
That's my mistake. My mistake was I thought I had a flush with a king high. I told myself the only way of him winning is if he has a flush with an ace that makes him a higher flush.
It makes sense, right?
So I thought in all other cases, if he didn't have that ace if he had anything else, I thought it was a split pot. That was my mistake.
The good news is we're learning here. That's good. Next time will be more careful in these scenarios.
Because in that case, where it would have been a split spot in any other case than an ace, then I should have called. If that were the rules, then I should have called.
You mean folded, but...
No, then I should have called. If he can only win with an ace of spades, then I should have called. Because in any other case, I would have got a split pot. There are way more cards than an ace of spades. That was my mistake. That was my thinking. Thank you for being so patient and letting me understand that.
That's fine. That's what I'm here for. I remember a similar hand. It was a hand you were not involved in, and someone made a very small bluff on the flop and won the hand. Do you remember that lesson where we had that hand?
Yes, I do. It was one of our last, or the one before that.
Here's what I would think. This board is the same thing. If they don't have a king or a 4, they'll fold. You don't have to make a big bet here. Something small. If they have a bad hand, they'll fold. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
It's worth it here to risk something like 2 big blinds or even 1 big blind. It has a chance to work. If they have yours, they can easily fold.
At my level, people don't like to fold too much, but I agree. I did raise. They both did call. I just wasn't sure that they were smart enough to fold.
How often does it have to work if you bet 1 chip, do you know?
I don't.
Well, what's the reward?
The reward would have been 7 big blinds.
The risk?
1.
These are your odds. Can you put them together? Tell them as the odds.
I have to win this 1 in 8 times.
Yes. Would that be possible?
If they're smart, yes. There's a chance that, well, they don't like folding to 1 big blind. For them, at their level, folding is a hard thing to do. Can I win that 1 in 8 times? Well, maybe. Yes, if I get lucky. They're not all too bad players, then yes. Some of them know how to play. Yes, it should be possible.
There's another good thing that can happen. Even if they don't fold, it's not you have no chances to win. You could still win it even then. How you could win it then?
I could make a flush.
Even with a weaker hand, you could sometimes win. Sometimes with a jack or a 10. To me, this seems a win-win scenario. They could fold, that you win, or you could make your jack or a 10 sometimes win. The same here on the turn, but they've checked twice. Does it look they have a king or a...
What's less risk of bluffing?
It's a better time to bluff.
Yes, don't you agree?
Did you bluff? Both are fine times. Did you bluff here? This is not a big risk. The reward is 7. If you remember the first hand with ace-jack, do you remember how big was the reward there?
I did the all-in on the flop.
Yeah, but pre-flop. Do you remember how much was in the pot pre-flop when we were discussing of pre-flop options?
I don't remember how pre-flop went.
It was somewhere around 6 big blinds in the pot there pre-flop, before you made it 11 more. If you think about that hand, you had to risk 11 to win 6 big blinds. In this hand, you might have to just risk 1-2 big blinds to win 7. You'll risk big reward.
Agree, Norman. You're correct.
Let's see how it finishes.
It's a better position. Should I just call or should I raise?
Definitely not raise. Why raise? To me, it's call or fold.
Then it's a call.
If you don't want to fold, what do you beat? What hand does he have that you...
The danger would be a flush or a king.
Can you win?
I can win if he has a 10,
How do you
9.
beat a 10? You can't beat a 10.
If he has 10, 9, I won't win because they're already is one pair on the board. Is that right?
What's your best 5 cards?
My best 5 cards is King, 10-10.
No. Can you say
10-10 for 4 King.
Does your Jack matter?
No, it doesn't.
Every 10 is same strength here.
Why did he win? He won because he has a King. I only had a Jack. No, I only had a 10.
If you bluff, you will
But
also
you see, he was really, really sneaky. Wasn't he not?
What would have happened if you had bluff here?
He would have started betting earlier, and I would have folded.
No, if you bluff somewhere, you make a bet. What happens?
He would have called.
You would have still lost the hand.
Yes.
If you had bet less than 3, it would have been better for you that way.
Green Norman. Thank you.
What is this Jack 10 hand?
Is it not?
Did we already look this? Oh, the one we just looked. Hey, we did all of them. That's good. What do you think?
It was interesting, Norman. It showed me my mistakes of reasoning about my chances of winning. That I still make basic mistakes, as you see. I don't know when it's a split pot, when it's not.
Poker is a tricky game. If it wasn't tricky, then everyone could make it. It's normal to fall into these poker tricks there.
You feel much better, don't you? Or a little at least.
For sure I do.
It's a funny thing how our feeling change, huh?
For sure. I definitely don't feel the same every day. I guess you could say I have an average level. The good news is this is sort of how bad it gets with me. In compared to some people, it could be way worse. Some people really start shouting or get very aggressive. Not that I'm proud of how I acted. I definitely feel some days I'm super calm, everything feels nice. Other days are more like today.
You acted normal. I have nothing to complain about. I did feel that you were in some pain. I could feel that. I didn't look at your face. I only heard your voice. In your voice told me that.
That it wasn't as cheerful as often it is, that made it.
I felt that you were suffering mentally, and I didn't know why. It's the same suffering I get if I stop this lesson. I enter a poker game and it goes all bad. I get annoyed. I get that kind of suffering. Then what do you do? That's the question. What do you do? It will show up. It's very hard to get rid of it 100%. You can get better at managing it. I'm not sure you can get rid of it 100%. Unless you're Bernie the Rat, then you only have to press a button. Thanks a lot, Norman.
That's the funny thing. Often when people deal with their own issues, they actually become more annoying to others. Imagine if I'm in a bad mood, I would just get drunk to feel better. Probably you wouldn't enjoy so much our lesson and the quality of my teaching then. Even though I might feel that I suffer less than. That side to it, that some things which you do to soothe yourself might hurt others.
Norman, realize how much you are ahead of most people. Because if I ask Marianne, she will always tell that she's feeling great. She doesn't realize that she also goes through has an internal life, that not everything is always great, even if she wants to make it look like that. A lot of people are not just lying to others, they are lying to themselves. At least you realize what's happening. You can start working on that. That's huge. Not a lot of people do that, actually. Look around you. Norman, it was a very interesting lesson. Thanks a lot. I really enjoyed the time that I spent with you. I know that your feelings cannot be 100% pleasant all the time. Really don't worry about me. I just worried because maybe I did make those bad feelings appear. That was my intention.
It's good. It was nice as always with you. Interesting discussions that we had on the misfortunes and the rat experiment. You talked about people watching TV, the post office, how I would imagine Switzerland has very good reputation, I would say, internationally. I would never imagine that your helpline on a phone would be 45 minutes that you have to wait there.
Nobody picked up after that time.
That seems incredible. There must be some worker responsible for it that somehow...
It's a meaningless thing. It's just for something that is worth $1. It makes you waste time. My experience was if it would be AI, it would be much better. Norman, I really enjoyed our time together. Thanks a lot. Great lesson. Take care. See you next week. I wish you the best. Bye-bye.
You same here. Bye.